So a number of you guys have been asking me, Brian, do you hate Rocktomic? Did they fire you and now you have some sort of personal vendetta against them? Do you even know what you're talking about? So I'm going to answer that question. Do I hate Rocktomic? We're going to tackle that. And then number two, I want to give you a bigger view as to why I have my opinion on a Rocktomic, on a distribution model, and why I wouldn't personally use them. And also what's driving this video. Like, why am I even bringing this up? And then I'm going to give you guys 3 real examples that I think a Rocktomic model or distribution model won't really catch from a compliance or regulatory affairs point of view. So we're going to tackle that right now. If this is your first time here, my name is Brian. Good to meet you. And to give you guys a little bit of background about myself, I have over 15 years in the supplement and foods industry, specializing in regulatory affairs, quality assurance, and I've helped companies, small, medium, and large, comply with the regulations, navigate these regulations. And when I say small business, medium size, what do I mean? $10 million, $20 million, $50 million is, in total revenues is a small business, medium size, 500 million. And then anything bigger than that, you're looking at a large global corporation, for example. And I've worked with clients all across the spectrum, and I see these types of regulatory quality compliance issues pop up over and over again, and I help these guys navigate through that. And I believe that there is value in sharing these experiences with you and arming you with this type of knowledge. And I do offer consulting services, of course, for people like yourself that are starting your business. You guys want to do it the right way, or at least be properly informed. That's where I come in. So getting to Rocktomic, the first thing I want to answer is, Brian, do you hate Rocktomic? Like, what's your problem? And I will say that I don't. I got nothing against them, right? I've never worked with them personally. They've never fired me. What it comes down to is just properly informing you guys of the regulations, of the laws, of the requirements. You're going to be creating a product that more people are going to be ingesting, they're going to be eating, and they're going to have standards of quality and expectations of safety, and they're going to want the best product from you. Wouldn't you want to know what the regulations and laws state when it comes to making supplements so that you can deliver or exceed on those expectations? And I'm sure your consumer base would want that from you. It's really about informing you guys of a lot of these things, because let's face it, the regulations aren't easy. It's sometimes very dry. It talks about compliance and production and all these things. Not everyone is an expert in it, and that's okay. And the thing is that when I say not everyone, it's not just entrepreneurs. It's also people that work in manufacturing of supplements. Yeah, that's right. It's even in the people that are involved in the industry. A lot of them don't know all the rules to the game. Even I'm learning new things every day. And on top of it, I have 15 years of experience, right? There's always something that you're going to be able to learn. And the regulations, it's not easy to apply. And there are things that FDA hasn't figured out yet either. But I really want to just say that the whole point of this, why am I picking on Rocktomic? Well, a lot of people are going to Rocktomic to start their business. And I think it's important that you understand what the regulations are, and you can then decide whether you want to keep going with Rocktomic or you can decide to not. It's really up to you. To me, it doesn't matter. As long as you're producing great quality product for your consumers that follow the laws and regulations, hey, I'm happy, right? The thing I want to clarify, and I think a lot of people were commenting about this on my other video, and they're saying, but Rocktomic is great. They have great labeling standards. I talked to someone and they called me and they told me what things I can say or can't say, or the review seemed pretty legit. That may be the case. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't worked with them personally. Okay. But what I do know is that, number one, regulations are more than just labeling, right? That's number one. So regulations goes into the manufacturing, the production, how you transport the inventory, as well as how you store the inventory, right? So think about it, your production run. Let's just say, for example, that you have a product that has a claim that says gluten-free. Well, how do you know that they're not running your product on the same line as another product that has gluten in it? Right? Or that might have gluten in it. You have no idea. Or maybe how are they cleaning it so that there's no cross-contamination, right? Like, you're just relying on them to clean it properly, but how are you vetting that process? And I'm not expecting you guys to do that, but this is just one example of, hey, the regulations are more than just labeling, and you'll definitely want to bring in some sort of expertise in to poke around at the manufacturing process, at least from the standpoint of, are they meeting the regulation? Now, I understand that labeling is a compliance issue for many, and I think a lot of people resonates with them because they see the label and, that's the first thing they see when it comes to compliance, right? And one example, we'll move over to the examples now of, where a Rocktomic or distribution model or even a contract manufacturer might not catch. And so you're familiar with the asterisk, right? When you make a claim, a structure function claim, which in itself is a very specific type of claim, right? You put the asterisk on that claim, and then that asterisk ties to the FDA statement that says these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, yada, yada, yada. Number one is, first of all, you have to determine, is that claim actually a structure function claim? And if it's not, the asterisk does not belong. And also, it's important to note that the asterisk is not like a cover your ass thing, right? Just because you put that disclaimer on there doesn't mean that you're protected in any way. You're just following the regulations that says you need to make sure you tie that disclaimer to that structure function claim. But it doesn't mean that your product is now like good to go just because you've told the consumer that it wasn't evaluated by the FDA. The other thing, and this is where a lot of people in the industry, they miss this, right? And that is, for every claim that you put an asterisk on, you need to notify the FDA. You need to submit that to the FDA. Now, I don't think a Rocktomic is doing that for you. I'm not even sure if they're telling you that. They may be, but I know that other distribution models or companies aren't, and I know a lot of other contract manufacturers aren't. And this is actually by regulation. It's in there. It says you need to notify the FDA, and there's a mechanism on how to do that. And that's on you to do. Now, that's the thing, right? The Rocktomics of the world, the manufacturers of the world are relying on you to do that. They're expecting you to do it, and they're like, not my problem, that's yours. But they don't even tell you, right? Which isn't fair to you. And this is why it comes down to having someone by your side to inform you. You can't rely on your supply chain to tell you what to do or how to comply. They're going to just put that on you. And when there's a problem, when someone's knocking on your door and asking you for your FDA notifications, they're like, Go talk to, buddy. That's his business. That's his line. I just make it for him. Right. And then now you're like, who? Now you're like, what do I do? So moving on to another example, by regulation, you are expected to hold retention samples for every lot that you've made. Okay. And what are retention samples? They are literally just a few bottles of each production run, right? The stuff that you're going to sell into market, you're supposed to keep for yourself and store. And what's the point of that? Number one, serves several. Number one is you want to have record of your product, right? You want to see how it was labeled, what kind of label was on there. You might have future revisions of the label. So it's important to have that in your stockpile so that you could always go back to it and take a look at it. As number one. And then you could also use that to like just assess the quality of the product, the finished product. Maybe the label wasn't on properly. Maybe it was a little bit uneven. At least you have record of that as well. But the bigger idea of the retention sample is that you could do testing. If FDA starts knocking on your door and they say that they tested your product, they ordered it online or they found it on the shelf, they tested and they found something, and there's like, your product has this, this, and this in it. And now you can go to your retention samples and test it yourself, because at the end of the day, you don't know how FDA, tested your product. You don't know if the product that they had was mishandled or tampered with, but you have your retention samples in a safe, secure place that you could go to, and you know that no one tampered with it. Right. And then you could test that and defend yourself with it. Right. So those are the retention samples. But here's the thing. You need to keep, retention samples of every lot. And so, if you've made 5 lots, you have to keep like 3 bottles for each 5. Right. So that's 15 bottles total. Now, in the Rocktomic model, they're creating a product and selling it to, hundreds of clients, thousands of clients. I have no idea how big they are. Probably quite a lot, right? And so think about it. If they were to comply for you, if the expectation that you have for them is like, oh, they'll hold retention samples for me. Well, they don't have to hold it just for you. They have to hold it for all their clients. So just imagine 3 bottles for every lot, for every one of their clients. Their warehousing costs are going to skyrocket. They're going to be running out of space, right? And on top of it, the cost for the samples alone is going to eat into the profit. They'll be like, hell no, we're not holding this. We'll hold enough just for ourselves from a compliance standpoint for our manufacturers and to defend ROCKTOMIC'S name, but I'm not going to hold it for you. It's your business. If you want to hold it, you do it, right? But I suspect that no one's telling you about the retention sample requirement. This is why regulation spans beyond just manufacturing. There are other commitments that are required of you, and you can't rely on your supply chain to tell you these things, right? And I suspect they're not going to bring these things up to you because you're probably going to ask them to do it for you, and they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want those additional costs. Or they may charge you for it. Who knows? Maybe you watch this video and you can bring it up with them and like, you know what, for you, we'll do it for you, but we're going to charge you X, Y, and Z. And maybe you're okay with that. But at least now you know, right? And the next example is, let's just say someone got sick from your product, or they had a reaction from your product. Maybe they had celiac. They took your product. They thought it was gluten-free, and then they had to go to the hospital, right? And now they're going to report that to the FDA, and FDA gets a note of it, and they start snooping around, and they test your product and they find something in there, or they find that you don't have the right label claim in your product, or they reach out to you through email or phone you or whatever it is. And hopefully you got your retention samples now that you know about it to protect yourself. But then the other thing is, like, they're going to ask you, like, show me your testing. Like, how did you test your product? Why is there no ginkgo biloba that you said that there was ginkgo biloba? It says right here, 1,000 milligrams on your label, and it's got XYZ glycosides in there, right? And we tested it, and you don't have those glycosides in your product. So the other issue with the ROCKTOMIC model is that you don't know how they're testing for it. Like, think about it. They're making a huge batch. They're making one big batch of product, which in itself isn't a good idea. You have to think, okay, well, they created these products. They did some sort of testing to release it. Fingers crossed, but I have no idea what it is. I'm completely relying that the fact they released it means that it's okay. But at the same time, we also know that a lot of manufacturers don't test. I did another video about that example. They don't test the product. They don't do full testing. Sometimes they do what they call skip lot. They only test certain parameters for the most part. And then once in a blue moon, they'll do the full panel testing. Maybe your brand requires a lot of testing. Maybe you're all about triple testing, or your consumer base is such a health enthusiast. They need that reassurance, and they're expecting you to test the product, and you just assume that ROCKTOMIC was doing it. You want to make sure that you have that visibility into the testing, right? If FDA comes knocking to your door and they say, show me the test results, and you're like, well, I bought it from these guys, they're called whatever, and they did it. I don't know what they did. Right away, FDA's like, all the bells are ringing, like, oh, this person has no idea this. There's going to be a lot of compliance issues I'm going to hit you for. And yeah, you could point your finger at the manufacturers or your distributor, the distribution business, but what are they going to do? They're like, no, it's not me. They sign the dotted line. They take responsibility, and this is their product's name. Their brand name is on this product. And then they might not get back to you. It's going to take a lot of time. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of finger pointing. It's just going to be really, really messy to get out of the situation. And yeah, you could sue, your ROCKTOMIC'S of the world if you found something, but let's be real. Do you have the money to sue them? And I'm sure they've got the money to hire the right attorneys for them. So for me, you think of that example, you think of all these examples. This is why I wouldn't choose a ROCKTOMIC personally. Knowing what I know, what I've experienced, my advice is to always bring someone that will represent you. Just like how you have, a real estate agent that represents yourself, a lawyer that represents you, to inform you of the situation so that you can make the right decision. But on top of it, someone who's well versed in the regulations, in quality assurance, they can also help you vet the business that you want to work with. And that's really what it comes down to. ROCKTOMIC might be the best business model for you for now, but they might not be the one partner for you in the long term, right? But it doesn't matter who it is. What matters is how you vet them, right? How do you check in on them? What documents are you reviewing? What questions are you asking? And for me, I want to have more control over my production. I want to have more control over my labeling. I want to have more control over my testing. I want to be able to change the testing parameters. I want to be able to add testing parameters. I want them to pay for the costs. I want to negotiate all of those things. Personally, I'd go with something with more control. All right. And yes, there's a cost to that. And yes, you know, you're going to be holding more inventory and all these things. But again, this comes down to you, what you're comfortable with, what suits your business model, what your game plan is, your consumer base, all of those things. Anyway, hopefully you found this information helpful. Guys, if you want to work with me, if you want to talk through your business concept, your claims, your marketing, if you want to just bounce ideas off someone from a regulatory or, you know, quality assurance point of view and just see, do I have something promising here? This is where I step in and help you guys. And if for some of you guys, you're probably already selling supplements and realize you ran into an issue and you need help. You want to move out of a manufacturer, you want to move into another manufacturer, you want to vet another manufacturer. That's where I come in as well. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.